Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we are taking a very specific legal detour.
hmm
We're not looking at global politics or macro trends. Instead, we're plunging deep into the granular details of a legal filing an affidavit and petition from the city civil courts in Hyderabad.
Exactly.
And the sources we've got reveal this monumental internal conflict, one that's apparently been brewing for decades inside a really major, historically influential social organization.
That's really the mission today. We're looking at official court documents, specifically an interlocutory application, an IA No of 2025, which is, seeking these urgent, immediate orders inside a bigger case.
The original petition.
Right, OP 61 of 2025. And this deep dive, it's less about the super technical legal stuff and more about, well, what happens when an organization's governance just completely collapses from the inside? It's a study in accountability failure.
A huge failure, it sounds like. And the petitioners are asking for relief, that is. I mean, it's nothing short of revolutionary.
Oh, absolutely.
They want the court to immediately suspend the entire leadership of this powerful society. So to set the stage, let's identify the organization and the key players here.
Okay, so the main organization in question is the Telangana State Kuruma Sangham. It was chartered and registered way back in 1951.
Wow, 1951.
Yeah, which really speaks to its long heritage, its importance to the community it serves. It used to be called the Andhra Pradesh Kuruma Sangham.
And the people who are initiating this huge challenge, the petitioners.
They're registered members.
Okay.
The filing is led by Mr. Kongala Pandu, who's identified as working in social work, along with Hendwar Gurunath Kuruma, who's a lecturer, and Mantri Ravindranath, also in social work.
So these are, it seems, kind of ordinary members demanding this extraordinary judicial intervention.
Exactly. They're bringing the fight right to the incumbent leaders. The key respondents are, well, naturally, the Sangham itself is R1, the State Election Committee is R2, and then the man whose tenure is really the central point here.
The president.
The president, Mr. Yegge Mallesham, is listed as R3. And the affidavit, it specifically identifies him as a politician, age 69.
So the stage is set. A long-serving politician versus, allegedly, the organization's own constitutional mandate. And the core of this legal battle, it really hinges on a single, shocking claim about leadership tenure. Let's unpack that.
Well, the affidavit uses this really charged term. It says the present office bearers have been stagnated for over 20 years.
20 years.
20 years. This isn't just long service. The petitioner is basically saying this stagnation is proof of constitutional rot and a serious abuse of power.
It's a remarkable claim, especially for an organization that old. But what exactly makes this two-decade run allegedly illegal? Is it just a general feeling that it's been too long, or does the Constitution have specific hard limits?
Oh, it has extremely specific hard limits. The Society's Constitution, which was last legitimately amended back in 1974, restricts the president's term to only 3 years.
3 years.
3. The petitioners claim that the current executive committee was put in place, and they used the word high-handedly, back in 2006 without any proper elections. And Mr. Mallesham has effectively stayed in control for about 20 years, just defying that 3-year limit over and over again.
That gap, I mean, between a 3-year limit and a 20-year reality it's just astonishing. Why do organizations, especially nonprofits or community societies, put term limits in place to begin with? What's the risk of stagnation?
Well, term limits are really the lifeblood of accountability in these kinds of democratic organizations.
Yeah.
They force new ideas in, they ensure knowledge gets transferred, and, most importantly, they prevent the society from becoming the, quote, private property of one person.
And that's the exact language they use in the filing?
It is, precisely. When you have a 3-year limit, the organization is structurally built to refresh its vision, its engagement, its financial scrutiny every 36 months. When that's ignored for 2 decades, the petitioners are arguing, the society stops serving the community and just starts serving the interests of the people in power.
That really makes the stakes clear. It's not just a procedural issue. They're alleging the organization has essentially been privatized. But it's not just the term length, right? The affidavit details a specific failure with the election process itself.
Absolutely. And the rule book is meticulous, which makes the alleged failure even more, egregious. Clause 30 of their own constitution mandates that elections have to be conducted every 3 years.
Yeah.
But here's the key procedural failure.
Okay.
Subclause 3 of that same clause says the procedure for the election must be published to all members 3 months in advance.
3 months' notice. That seems designed to make sure everything is transparent, give challengers time to organize.
Exactly. And if they've allegedly not held elections for 20 years, they certainly haven't been publishing any procedures 3 months in advance.
Right.
Correct. The core allegation is that the leadership has, and I'm quoting again, lent a deaf ear to all the rules and regulations. They weren't just skipping an election. They were allegedly ignoring the entire framework of democratic governance.
So when members raised concerns, what happened?
Well, the petitioners claimed they were just met with the leadership operating by self-styled rules for their own benefit.
Given that the society was founded in 1951, couldn't the leadership argue that tradition and, seniority justify a long tenure, that maybe the stability of a 20-year term is seen as a strength, not a weakness?
That's often the unwritten defense,
Hmm?
the argument for institutional stability.
Hmm.
But the legal filing makes it crystal clear that the petitioners are demanding that the written document, the 1974 Constitution, has to win out over any alleged custom.
I see.
When you're seeking judicial relief, the court isn't going to look at tradition. It's going to look at the written rules the society agreed upon. And when those rules explicitly limit power to 3 years, that argument of, traditional seniority just completely falls apart in a legal context.
That distinction between custom and constitution is crucial. A governance failure of this magnitude, ignoring the election cycle for 2 decades, it rarely stands alone. Once the rules break down on timing, they often break down on money. Which brings us to the financial clouds and these alleged unauthorized rule changes.
Precisely. The second major cluster of allegations, it deals directly with non-transparency. The affidavit makes another stunning claim. The society has allegedly not submitted a single audit report of its finances this entire time.
Not one in 20 years.
Not one, which is a clear violation of its own rules.
No audit reports. That's not just some administrative slip-up. That's a massive red flag waving over the whole organization. What do the petitioners think is happening with the funds?
They explicitly assert that the president and the committee members have, quote, colluded with the president in misusing the society funds for personal benefits. And if this organization has properties, if it runs hostels, as we see later in the filing, well, the lack of an audit trail for 20 years makes it impossible for members to know how community assets have been used.
It creates an environment where that private property allegation really takes on a very real financial meaning. And the allegations go beyond just money, right? They claim the leadership was actively creating new rules to suit themselves.
Yeah, and this is where the filing really suggests ill intention rather than just simple negligence. It highlights 2 conflicting documents. First, the petitioners confirm that the last legitimate amendment to the Constitution was dated January 19, 1974.
The 1974 document.
Yes, and that was confirmed by the Registrar of Societies in July of 2025 as the official recognized version.
So that's the legal benchmark. What's the other document they're talking about?
They allege that the president has been circulating a, quote, self-styled amendment copy dated July 14, 2019.
2019, that's really recent.
It is, and they claim this is an unauthorized, basically a manufactured document that was introduced without following the stipulated procedure.
That date is fascinating. Why would the leadership allegedly feel the need to create a new, unofficial rulebook in 2019 if they'd already been successfully ignoring the 1974 rules for, the previous 13 years?
Well, the creation of this alleged 2019 document suggests that maybe the pressure or the legal heat was rising internally. It might have forced the leadership to try and create some kind of retroactive defense or justification for their power.
So instead of following the rules and holding an election.
Right. Instead of that, they allegedly tried to change the rulebook itself without any membership approval or regulatory oversight. It implies a conscious, deliberate attempt to subvert the founding documents.
And the petitioners clearly see this as the last straw. They say this action speaks for itself about the ill intentions and ulterior motives of the present unauthorized committee. So with no financial accountability and allegedly manufactured rules, how did the petitioners first try to fix this?
They say they followed the constitutional path first. The petitioners submitted multiple representations to the society, raising their grievances in a constitutional manner.
So they weren't immediately running to the courts.
No, they tried to resolve the problem internally first, signaling that they wanted accountability within the organization's own framework.
And what was the alleged response from Mr. Malesham's administration when these issues were raised?
Well, the affidavit alleges intimidation and coercion, which really escalates the whole conflict.
Oh, wow.
The petitioners allege that henchmen of the third respondent, so associates of the president, directly threatened them. specifically the first and second petitioners, to, quote, desist from their actions and to not challenge the authority of the third respondent.
Threatening registered members just to stop them from asking for accountability. That suggests the leadership knew the grievance was valid, but chose strong-arm tactics over compliance.
It does.
And that brings us to the filing itself. The petitioners are basically saying we are no longer safe and the internal systems have completely failed.
Absolutely. The moment threats are alleged, any possibility of an internal resolution just vanishes, and that explains the urgency of this legal filing. They filed what's called an interlocutory application, the IA under Order 39, Rule 1 and 2.
For our listeners who aren't familiar with that kind of procedural language, what does filing under Order 39 signal?
Filing under Order 39 is essentially signaling an emergency. It's the legal system's route for seeking the fastest possible intervention, like a temporary injunction or a restraining order.
So they're saying the damage is happening right now.
Yes, they're arguing that the continued operation of this committee, which is operating at their whims and fancies, and allegedly using funds for campaigns, illegal gains, will cause irreparable loss and injury to the society. They need protection and a freeze on the alleged mismanagement immediately.
So let's get to the immediate ask of the prayer. What are the specific, sweeping things they're asking the court to grant right now?
The first prayer is for a total administrative freeze. They want the court to immediately suspend or put in abeyance all powers of the existing committee and its president, Mr. Yegge Mallesham.
So if that's granted, it stops all decision-making authority cold.
Instantly.
A complete removal of power. What follows that vacuum then?
Second, and this is the crucial step for restoring governance, they ask the court to appoint an ad hoc committee or an authorized person who would operate under the supervision of the district registrar.
A neutral body.
Exactly. This is the formal request for judicial management, a neutral third party stepping in to stabilize the society.
And what would this court-appointed body actually do? Are they just handling the new elections?
Oh, the scope they're asking for is massive. They demand that this ad hoc body must supervise all society affairs. This includes monitoring payments of bills and receipts, overseeing resolutions, initiating legitimate election procedures based on that 1974 Constitution.
So everything.
Everything. And making all decisions related to the Sangham's properties, its associated societies, and its hostels. The petitioners aren't just asking for a change of guard. They are demanding a complete judicial overhaul and daily management of the organization.
What's so remarkable here is the scale of this alleged breakdown. A 20-year term violation, allegations of financial misuse with zero audits, unauthorized rule changes, and it all culminates in this unprecedented request for a full judicial takeover.
It is unprecedented.
The petitioners are saying they have lost all confidence in the ability of this organization to govern itself.
That is the key takeaway. A court-ordered stay and the appointment of an ad hoc body is the most dramatic intervention a court can offer, short of completely dissolving the organization. It signals the petitioner's absolute conviction that every internal mechanism from elections to finance has just completely failed.
So they're asking the judiciary to step in and enforce the very rule book the organization wrote for itself back in 1974.
That's it. This legal filing just illustrates that critical tension so vividly. Organizations like this one, chartered since 1951, they're often the bedrock of a community's identity and resources. They really rely on trust.
They do, and if such historically important organizations allegedly can't or won't enforce their own written constitutions, especially on fundamental things like term limits and financial audits, they risk losing their legitimacy entirely.
Completely.
And that raises a critical question for you to consider as you process this deep dive. If democratic governance and self-regulation fail within organizations created to uplift a community, and that failure leads to a judicial takeover, what is the ultimate long-term cost of that instability to the very community they were created to serve? That's the heavy implication hanging over the city's civil courts of Hyderabad right now.